It's time for the Josh Kirby on Sports Podcast.
On this edition of the Kirby on Sports Podcast, we will be breaking down the World Series to start off the show, then moving in to some very exciting matchups in Week 7 of the National Football League. All that and so much more, but before we begin, we would like to thank our brand new sponsor at Regroup Building Services, specializing in custom homes, remodels, additions, and so much more. If you're looking for a new place to call home or just need repairs on your current home, look no further. Regroup Building Services has you covered. Make sure you check them out today at www.regroupbuildingservices.com. Once again, that's regroupbuildingservices.com. We do the honeydews that your honey don't. Make sure you tell them Josh sent you. We are also sponsored by PM Plus Reserves, now expanding their territory to serve the I-81 corridor from Hagerstown, Maryland to Stanton, Virginia. All right. It's time for another edition of the Kirby on Sports Podcast, starting right now.
I'm glad you connected. This is Dave Johnson, voice of the Washington Wizards. You have connected to the right place because you are listening to my man, Josh Kirby, on Sports Podcast.
All right, welcome back to another week of the Kirby on Sports Podcast. Still going strong. I'm glad to be back here with all of you. As always, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for hopping in today. As always, we are sponsored by Regroup Building Services. We do the honeydews that your honey don't, and by PM Plus Reserves. Big thanks, as always, to MPT Now Productions, Dave Johnson, and Productions by Quet. A lot to get into from Week 7 in the National Football League and the World Series of Baseball. I want to first and foremost start out with this interesting, exciting World Series game that ended with the Dodgers finally winning a World Series. It's interesting to see the Dodgers not imploding on themselves and Clayton Kershaw choking. So it was very good to see the Dodgers finally get a World Series under their belt. Granted, it was a 60-game season. I don't really want to say there should be an asterisk by this championship because this only was a 60-game MLB regular season. But there are some people who are putting asterisk marks by this championship because of how short the season was. So, as a Nats fan, some buddies of mine are putting out memes saying we're still the 162-game World Series champion. But in my mind, the Houston Astros, their World Series title has a huge asterisk beside it because they are cheaters, and nothing can change my mind about that one. So, moving into this game, a lot to talk about from this Game 6, the game that the Dodgers won. The Dodgers won this game 3-1 against the Tampa Bay Rays, which, in my opinion, this game, I have a lot to talk about. So I want to start off with Blake Snell. Pitched about a little over 5 innings with 2 hits, 1 run, 1 earned run, and 9 strikeouts. 9 strikeouts. He went 5 innings, and then the manager, Kevin Cash, for the Rays, decides to pull him, which absolutely makes no sense. With 5 innings under Blake Snell's belt, and he's still dealing the ball pretty well, and he let one more guy on base, and then Kevin Cash pulled him. Some people are going to say that they wanted to shoot for a lefty-righty matchup or vice versa in this situation. But in my opinion here, if the starter was dealing and he was on a hot streak, don't take him out of the game with 5 innings pitched. And granted, after Snell leaves, Nick Anderson comes in to in relief. Then you have 1, 2, 3 more relievers. And obviously, the Dodgers capitalized off of that. The Dodgers absolutely capitalized off of that. You have Mookie Betts with 2 home runs. Singles, Mookie Betts only had 1 home run, an RBI. Corey Seager also had an RBI. Then Mookie Betts had a double along with Will Smith. So, obviously, the situation that Kevin Cash pulled Blake Snell, the Dodgers obviously capitalized. And this sort of brings me back to last year's World Series when in Game 7, the Astros were pitching Verlander against the Nationals. And it seemed to be Verlander just had his stuff going. He was patient. He was calm. He was working around the strike zone and not throwing too many heaters. You just got to mix it up and keep things on point. Then when A.J. Hinch pulled him, I don't recall how early it was or if it was later on, but after that, the Astros didn't go to one of their best, Garrett Cole, who has now been dealt to the Yankees. So anyways, besides the point there, they didn't go to Garrett Cole. They went to Will Harris. And immediately after, Will Harris starts throwing heaters right down the middle, and the Nationals capitalized. So I feel like in this game, the Dodgers capitalized off of the Rays' mistake to pull Blake Snell early. I really do think Blake Snell was pulled very early in this ball game, and the score dictates it. And you hate to see it because the manager is there to make the decisions, but I really don't think he should have been pulled that early. I really don't. He should have at least gone 7. A typical starter in the MLB goes at least 7 innings. From what I have watched over the past years of watching baseball. Obviously, this year is different. The World Series was played in a neutral location with not as many off days. It was 2 on, 1 off, 2 on, 1 off. So a lot of interesting stuff, but still, you got to look at what happened in Snell getting pulled and the Dodgers capitalizing. Hats off to the Dodgers. My next point, and this is where I'm really upset. Why was this game even played? Congrats to the Dodgers, but why was this game even played? In the 8th inning, Dodgers Justin Turner, and I'm not kidding you here, third baseman Justin Turner gets pulled from the game in the 8th inning. Then the reports come out that Justin Turner tested positive for COVID-19. So first off, if you have a pending COVID test that hasn't came back, why are you playing this game? Why? It makes absolutely no sense. At the MLB, we've seen this with the Miami Marlins. They went over the hump and they overcame. They made it to the playoffs. But other than that, there hasn't really been a big issue with anything in the MLB going on with COVID tests. So, with that being said, why was this game played if there was a pending COVID test waiting for the results. And then Justin Turner gets pulled. So he was playing. He could have infected some people. I don't know. I don't want to assume anything here, but I mean, something was done wrong here. Something was done wrong. And credit to the MLB, they will be investigating this. So that is good. So that's the 8th inning. Turner gets pulled because of his positive COVID test. But that's not all. No, that's right. That is not all. After the Dodgers win, you see Justin Turner back on the field. Granted, an inning before, he gets pulled because he's testing positive for COVID. And next thing you know, he's back on the field. Mask on, then mask down to his chin strap. And within 3 inches of Dave Roberts sitting down, posing for a picture with the World Series trophy, hugging his teammates. What's going on? Absolutely unnecessary risks. I mean, yes, you won a World Series. I get that. I absolutely get that. I would be over the moon. But we are dealing with a global pandemic. And to see Justin Turner recklessly go back out there and celebrate with his team, it's uncalled for. And the MLB needs to investigate, and the MLB needs to find some people for this. COVID protocols have been breached. Whoever let Justin Turner back out of the clubhouse or wherever he was to celebrate with the Dodgers should get fired. Should get fined, should get penalized, and get fired. Because that is uncalled for. That is unexcusable. We are going through a global pandemic here. And you see Justin Turner, who just tested positive for the coronavirus during the World Series. And the World Series didn't even get postponed. That game didn't get moved. They just played it as is. And next thing you know, Justin Turner celebrating the World Series championship, holding the trophy, hugging his players and family, and I'm at a loss for words right now because I mean, we're going through a global pandemic, and it should take precedent over winning a World Series. And the MLB really needs to think long and hard about what went wrong during this game, and I fully expect there are going to be some fines, if not people getting fired. The guy who let Justin Turner out should get fired because that's obviously a breach in COVID protocol. This isn't anything to mess around with. Nothing. This is something we cannot mess around with. And Justin Turner recklessly could have infected his whole team. But once again, I don't want to make assumptions and be like the whole Dodgers staff and organization and teammates are going to come down with COVID. But I'm just saying, like the CDC keeps pushing on us, wear masks, stay 6 feet apart. We're slowly but surely going to make it through it. But we just have to take the proper precautions. And seeing Justin Turner go on that field and celebrate with his teammates, it really was not good. It was not good at all. What happened was, I mean, I sort of followed the game on my phone, but I was really tired for some reason. So I didn't stay up, watch the whole thing. I obviously caught the recording of the game like I usually do because I'm an old man. I hate to say, but I'm an old man and I can't stay up late anymore. But anyways, so I woke up at about 2 o'clock and I see the Dodgers winning the World Series. Then I see, what is Justin Turner doing on Twitter? And then everything flies that Justin Turner tests positive for COVID. And I'm half asleep, and I see a picture of him celebrating with his team, and I was like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. So a lot of questions need to be answered, and the MLB, rightfully so, is investigating this matter, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they determine. Obviously, it's a global pandemic, folks. Just stay safe, be healthy. I wish Justin Turner all the best. He tweeted after the World Series, he feels fine, no symptoms, but still, I mean, if somebody contracts COVID, who knows if you're not going to have symptoms or not? Who knows? It's a global pandemic that we're going to slowly but surely get through, but that's my hot rant for the day on the Dodgers and Justin Turner. I know some people might agree with me, but this game shouldn't have been played. It really should have been postponed until COVID tests were cleared and everybody tested negative. But it's in the past now, nothing we can do. The Dodgers fought off from imploding themselves, and Clayton Kershaw finally gets a World Series instead of choking again. And, you know, in years past, you've seen the Dodgers just choke. You saw it last year, the Nats beat them. And you saw in 2017, the Astros beat them in the World Series. And they finally did it. But, now, I mean, the Justin Turner thing just really baffles me. And that's just my take on that. The Dodgers wrap up the World Series against the Tampa Bay Rays, winning the game 3-1 and winning the series 4-2 in a condensed 60-game regular season format. Congratulations to the Los Angeles Dodgers. And once again, I'm looking forward to hearing what the MLB has to say after wrapping up this investigation. We'll be right back to cover Week 7 and so much more in the National Football League. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Let's move on to Week 7 in the National Football League. A crazy week with a lot of close games. This was one of the best weeks yet, in my opinion, because of how many close games there were. And we have a lot to break down for you. Let's start off. The Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Giants to start off the NFC East, the division of hot garbage. The Philadelphia Eagles are currently in first place. Let me just run this down before we get into this. Let's see. Okay, the Philadelphia Eagles are in first place along with the Washington football team, the Dallas Cowboys, and the New York Giants in last place. Not a team over 500 yet. So, the dumpster fire of the NFC East, let's get this started. With Philadelphia and New York, this game was very, very interesting. I must say, because Daniel Jones, he really played decent in my opinion, but once again, this game altogether was just two bad teams going at it. And I want to say this: the Daniel Jones had a long run, a read option. He could have made it to the end zone for a touchdown. He was all alone, but he trips on the 25-yard line. He trips. I saw that and I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it. I mean, Daniel Jones. I can't help but just say I'm sorry, man. I wasn't surprised he was on Come On Man on Monday night, but this game started off very slow. The Giants and the Eagles only put up 7 in the first quarter. The Eagles put up 3 in the second quarter to go up 10-7. Then the Giants shut the Eagles out in the third quarter 7-0. Then after that, in the fourth quarter, it was 12-7, with the final score being 22-21. As we look here, it was just a back and forth football game all around. In my opinion, this is why I love covering these close games. It was an all-around close football game. Both quarterbacks had an interception, so the stats are sort of similar for both quarterbacks. Wentz had almost 400 yards passing, though. But I mean, they put the pressure on Wentz because Boston Scott only had 46 yards rushing. This was a game I was like, they're making Wentz throw way too much. And for Daniel Jones, he had 92 yards rushing in this game. Talk about carrying the team with that long run that he got tripped up once again. But still, he had that, and Wayne Gallman only had 34 yards. So once again, there wasn't really much run game production, but it was just a back-and-forth matchup. As you look at the time of possession for both teams, the Eagles with 32 minutes, 17 seconds total, and the New York Giants with 27-15. Not really much of a penalized game, so to say. There were only 3 penalties by both squads in this game, and all around, it was just a division matchup that came down to the wire, came down to Carson Wentz throwing a touchdown, and no 2 points, but he had that touchdown to essentially go up by 1, and the Giants just couldn't come back, and that's how the game essentially ended for the Giants. Unfortunately, they had a shot to win this game, and they just couldn't come back after that. So the Eagles beat the Giants 22-21 on Thursday Night Football. Let's move on to our next team I want to talk about, the Battle of the Undefeateds. The Pittsburgh Steelers and the Tennessee Titans. Pittsburgh sort of had this game one-sided for a really, really, really long time. It really was a shootout, but the Titans just couldn't get started early enough, and it came down to a late interception from Big Ben, and the Titans had to drive from the 20 to get in field goal range, and then their field goal kicker missed. So, terrible way to, that was Steven Gostkowski, by the way, former Patriot. Terrible way to end a game by missing a field goal to tie the game. But the Steelers looked really good. I want to talk about here Big Ben and the receivers he has to throw to. The defense stepped up for the Titans, but still, I saw a lot of great throws and catches, and I mean, the defense has stepped up for both the Titans and the Steelers, but it hurt the Steelers more because Big Ben had 3 interceptions. But you look here, Deontay Johnson, he caught 2 touchdowns. Ebron didn't have a touchdown, but he looked excellent with 6 receptions for 50 yards. Juju Smith-Schuster, 9 receptions for 85 yards. And Chase Claypool, he didn't do much in that game, but he didn't really do much, but still, he is... These are all great weapons that Big Ben has to throw to, and he took advantage. And in my opinion, this was the key to the game. Big Ben just making good throws, but once again, the defense just pressured, and Big Ben forced some balls and ended up getting intercepted. And Same with the Steelers defense. Tannehill threw 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, but the defense got in, pressured him, and got 2 sacks on Tannehill. But anyways, I really did like this game. Pittsburgh was almost about to lose, but it came down to a missed field goal, and I just think that's all there is to it. And the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking better than ever with a veteran quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger, who doesn't look like he missed any time last season. He looks great, and the receivers around Big Ben are helping him out tremendously. And the Steelers are going to be on a roll, I think. They're 6-0, and the only issue I see is Baltimore, because Baltimore just had their bye week. So going into week 8, the Steelers and the Ravens, a 1 o'clock matchup, that might be a close game that the Steelers really, really, really need to prepare for. So the Pittsburgh Steelers 27-24 over the Tennessee Titans. Let's talk about the Cleveland Browns next. This game was another shootout. But what was interesting about this game, we all thought Cincinnati might run away with this ball game. In the first quarter, Baker Mayfield went 0 for 4 with 1 interception. After that, this game was a shootout. No doubt about it. After that, Baker went 22 for 28, 297 yards in 5 touchdowns. He threw 2 to Harrison Bryant, their tight end, looked amazing in this game. Peoples-Jones with 1. You got Kareem Hunt with a touchdown at the running back position, and David Njoku. Unfortunately, in this game, off that interception Cleveland threw, defending coverage, trying to bring the receiver down, Odell Beckham Jr. did tear his ACL. He is out for the season, so that's not good news for Cleveland. Odell Beckham, despite his attitude, is a good receiver that Baker Mayfield has used him tremendously, has helped him, but other than that, this was just a shootout game. Joe Burrow had 34 yards rushing, only 1 interception, but the Browns defense got in and pressured him. 4 sacks, negative 35 yards off the sacks. So it just came down to another last-second touchdown with Peoples-Jones. Yes, it was a 5-play, 75-yard drive, and they took the lead and won. There was no time left, and Cincinnati almost completed the Hail Mary, but A.J. Green just couldn't get the ball. But this was a back-and-forth matchup. In Cleveland, they're looking decent at 5-2. They could see. I wouldn't be surprised if they picked up somebody else at the trade deadline to improve their team even more. But Browns fans, you have something to be excited for, because with 5-2, I mean, this isn't a typical Browns team. They're actually looking good, and it's molding this whole division, because before you would see the Browns division and you would always see the Steelers and the Ravens on top. Now you just see the Bengals at 1-5. No, 1-5-1, excuse me, with that tie against the Eagles. The Bengals are at the bottom of that division with the Browns in third place. And if the Ravens lose, they could be tied next week. So this AFC North division still at the top, the Steelers with a 6-0 record. This AFC North is looking different than in years past. So that is the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals. Very great matchup. I really enjoyed watching that. Let's move on to Raheem Morris in his second game as interim head coach for the Atlanta Falcons. And I liked what Matt Ryan had. Matt Ryan really had a good game. 31 for 42, 338 yards and a touchdown. He was really mobile and really active and just trying to make good plays. And he only had one touchdown pass to Calvin Ridley in that game. But receivers looked well. Todd Gurley, only 63 yards. I would have liked to see some more rushing yards for Atlanta. But still, not much you can do about that. Matt Stafford, 340 yards and a touchdown. But, I mean, both teams' running games did not look well. They did not. It was just all on the quarterbacks. And let's talk about the main reason for this game is the Todd Gurley touchdown that shouldn't have been scored. Todd Gurley, it was a 10-yard touchdown. They were in the red zone, and the Lions had no timeouts. And what did Todd Gurley do? The Lions defense let Todd Gurley go, and he didn't realize it. There was like a minute 25 on the clock, and instead of Todd Gurley falling short, sliding short, he crosses the plane, and essentially the Falcons score a touchdown. And no matter how bad this Lions team is, they're 3-3. If they're 1-6, 0-7, whatever the record may be, you never want to give Matthew Stafford the ball on a game-winning drive. You never do. You never do. And Todd Gurley, as a veteran, he knows to stay out of the end zone to milk the clock. They had no timeouts. The Falcons could have won this game, but it came down to Matt Stafford. 8 plays, 75 yards, 1 minute and 4 seconds time of possession. And Matt Stafford got it done. No matter how bad the Lions are or how good the Lions are, if you give Matt Stafford the ball on a game-winning drive, he will deliver. He has done it before, and he just did it again against the Atlanta Falcons. And I don't want to put the blame all on Todd Gurley, but be aware of the situation. And come on, yeah, you could have easily won the game if you just stayed out of the end zone. And hats off to Detroit. That last minute drive looked amazing, and a lot of great touchdown passes. A lot of great passes in general, and it was just great. Stafford to Hawkinson for a 38-yard pass. That was just what really set them up. And then Amendola for 22, Hawkinson was 13 yards, then Amendola for 22 yards. Then after that, Kenny Golladay for 29 yards. So big chunks of yardage in a little amount of time. And Detroit knows how to hurry the ball up and get down and spike it. So, Matt Stafford is a pro at this. And I'm going to say it again. Even if this Lions team was winless, Matt Stafford and the Lions still could have pulled off that drill. Because Matt Stafford is the perfect quarterback, the best quarterback to pull off the 2-minute drill and succeed. And Atlanta, you could have won this game, but the initials ATL are starting to stand for another tragic loss. I'm sorry to say, but it's starting to stand for another tragic loss. I can't take credit for coming up with that. That was the crew on the NFL on Fox pregame show. I forget who said it, but I can't take credit for saying that. But I did think it was pretty funny. Detroit 23, Atlanta 22. Let's talk about another game. The New Orleans Saints and the Carolina Panthers. Teddy Bridgewater's homecoming to New Orleans. As you know, Teddy Bridgewater came in place of an injured Drew Brees, and the Saints looked great. He did a great job. He did a great job for the Saints. And this game, once again, another exciting game. Teddy Bridgewater, 254 yards and 2 touchdowns. Drew Brees, 287 yards and 2 touchdowns. Running game was very explosive for the Saints, but come on. You can't let Teddy do all the work. You see this so often. And their leading rusher, Carolina's leading rusher, was Mike Davis. And, man, I mean, still, Teddy Bridgewater pretty much carried the team today. 2 touchdowns out to DJ Moore in that game. But it was just a shootout, another shootout. And the Panthers just fell off short. In the Superdome, Carolina tried to let Joey Sly loose with a 64-65-yard attempt to try to win this game, I want to say. But, I mean, he didn't make it. It was an 11-play, 28-yard drive, 6 minutes possession, and they want Joey Sly to kick a 65-yard field goal. I mean, in the dome, yeah, I'd try it, but you could have went for something, but obviously they missed and the Saints won. But just another all-in-all shootout. I loved it this week, and I'm gonna keep saying I loved this week because of the shootouts and a lot of great shootouts that were in this game. Some blowouts as well. You saw Kansas City whoop on Denver 43-16. San Francisco whooping up on New England 33-6. Here's a stat for you. This is the first time since 2002 that the New England Patriots have a 2-game losing streak. Isn't that incredible? Isn't that incredible how it took that long because of Tom Brady and the bond he had with Bill Belichick and what a great team they were for so many years. We got to look at Cam Newton here. No touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Bill Belichick was right to put Jared Stidham in the game, contributed another interception, but Cam Newton made it clear if he can't step up his performance, he thinks the change will be permanent. I know Bill Belichick, I know Robert Kraft, I know the New England Patriots, and I know they will find a way to get through this. They are 2-4, but I know they will find a way to get through this. There's no better coach than Bill Belichick to fix this situation. And if it comes down to Cam Newton getting benched, that's what is going to happen. Cam Newton will get benched in place of Jared Stidham. Because I know Bill Belichick will do that if it is absolutely necessary. The Niners all around, I mean, they're looking pretty good. They look great. Yeah, I mean, even with injuries. But the thing about it, this wasn't done off of the throwing arm of Jimmy Garoppolo. He was 20 for 25, 277 yards, and 2 interceptions. But you look at their running back, Jeff Wilson, and you have JaMychal Hasty in there, 112 and 57 yards. and the run game. Yeah, this is really interesting because you don't usually see a run-dominant team do well, but it was great to see that the running game stepped up and helped Jimmy Garoppolo when he wasn't doing so well. But still, let's look here at the turnovers. 4 turnovers for the Patriots. And I'm trying to see, I believe there were 2 that were converted into points. Let me just make sure here. I just want to be completely sure. I believe there were 2, but yeah, I'm not. Yeah. No, there weren't. No, I thought there were at least 2, but still, the turnovers played a big part in San Francisco winning this game, and it came down to Cam Newton's 3 interceptions. I mean, they just cashed in off the drives. I apologize. I thought there was at least 1 or 2 interception returns for a touchdown, but there weren't. I don't know where I came up with that. But anyways, still, it clearly says here that, I mean, it's crazy. They cashed in an interception. They go down 5 plays, 38 yards for a touchdown. Interception, and they get a field goal. That's in the third quarter. So just missed opportunities for the Patriots that the San Francisco 49ers cashed in on. Green Bay gets their jump back 35-20 against Houston after losing last week to Tampa Bay. They really needed that game. It was close, but Aaron Rodgers, 4 touchdowns, 283 yards. He looked like the normal Aaron Rodgers, unlike the last week against Tampa Bay, where he did not play well at all. Green Bay needed that game as a confidence booster for them. The New York Jets. Why isn't Adam Gase fired? They're 0-7, and Adam Gase is still employed under the New York Jets as the head coach. Period. The end. I don't know why. I don't know why. Period. The end. Let's move on to another game. Let's go back to the dumpster fire, the NFC East. The Washington football team looks extremely different. 25-3. 25-3. Dallas flew up to FedEx Field to kick a field goal. I mean, essentially, that's what happened. Dallas flew up to FedEx Field to kick a field goal. I can't believe this. I was shocked as a fan watching this, but as a podcaster, I have to give you the facts. I have to give you the stats. Kyle Allen looked good. Antonio Gibson went off. 20 carries, 128 yards. When have you seen that for Washington? 20 carries for 128 yards. The past 3 games, I don't recall seeing anything close to those type of numbers. But you have to look at this game, and you have to determine, did Washington make an adjustment to do better, or was Dallas just that bad? And it looked like Dallas was just that bad. Andy Dalton was pressured all game. 3 sacks, negative 30 yards before he gets knocked out. An inexcusable hit by Washington's John Bostic. He got ejected for that hit, rightfully so. The league decided not to suspend him, which I do not disagree. I do disagree with. He should get fined. He should get suspended. He literally took a cheap shot as Andy Dalton was sliding on the ground, giving himself up. And he just trucks Andy Dalton with his shoulder. pops his helmet off. I did love to see Ben DiNucci, local star from JMU, coming in for the Dallas Cowboys, only an hour south from Northern Virginia, around where I'm located. So it was really great to see a local JMU guy get some professional snaps. Unfortunately, Ben DiNucci got sacked 3 more times for 25 yards. Cole Holcomb, player of the game. I'll tell you, Cole Holcomb got in there, got some sacks, and had an interception as well. So it was really great to see. It was really great to see as a Washington fan. But Dallas, they just look terrible. They look terrible on all aspects on both sides of the football. Elliott, 45 yards. Ezekiel Elliott, 45 yards. Are you going to continue to pay this man the amount of money you do if he can only put up 45 yards in a ball game? I mean, I wouldn't. Dallas only produced 83 yards in that game. You can't win a football game like that. Andy Dalton just got pressured all day, threw an interception. Ben DiNucci, not much to say about him. He didn't really have much time to do anything. Defense looked great for Washington, I must say. The game started off with Riverboat Ron going for it on 4th down at the goal line and not getting it. But Washington's defense made up for that by forcing a strip sack that gets recovered by Dallas, and Washington goes in and scores a touchdown. No, excuse me, it was a safety, not a touchdown. That came out completely different. But anyways, it was a safety. They go up by 2, and then they shut out Dallas the next 3 quarters. So what else? I mean, Kyle Allen, he looked good. Antonio Gibson looked great. There were weapons that Kyle Allen threw to. Terry McLaurin looked great, 7 receptions, 90 yards. Logan Thomas, quarterback converted to tight end. He looks great. 2 key players that dominated, but Cole Holcomb for the Washington football team, give him the player of the game. I really think he deserved the player of the game after getting in those for those sacks and everything, and that interception. It was great to see. Other than that, I mean, Washington's defense just stepped up because Dallas's O-line cannot protect the quarterback. And another thing I want to address here, I know I'm going in all different sorts of directions here with this game, but there's just a lot to cover in this dumpster fire of the NFC East. I want to go back to the hit on Andy Dalton. So Andy Dalton gets hit, and this is a rivalry game that has a lot of history to it. A lot of history from over the years. And in a rivalry like this, if you see a cheap shot on Andy Dalton, you would expect a scuffle or something. But no. The Dallas Cowboys literally did nothing to stick up for Andy Dalton. They just walked around like it was just another hit. And I'm sorry. I have to use my better judgment here, but the Dallas Cowboys, there needs to be a culture change. The culture is not there. There is no culture. It's a terrible culture. I remember last week reading from multiple sources that players were questioning the coach's decisions. And you look at this, and where's the culture? I mean, your starting quarterback gets hit, and you do nothing. I just think that's a problem Dallas needs to address, but Dallas needs to address a lot. Too many things to name on this show, but Dallas needs to address a lot. Their O-line, their defense, Washington ran all over them, and I guarantee you, Washington ran all over them because Dallas's defense sucked. I mean, it's just that plain and simple. Dallas's defense did not do a good job at all. And if this was a team like the Seahawks, the Rams, Washington wouldn't have put up good numbers. They absolutely wouldn't have put up good numbers against any other team. I'll make it a stretch and say any other team except for the Dallas Cowboys. So, other than that, Dallas just needs to fix a lot. And I was on a podcast with my good friend Alex Alcazaz. We talked a lot about this. You can check out his podcast on the Bear of Texas podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can hear more in depth, a preview and a recap of the Washington versus Dallas game as well. But I mean, there needs to be a change in Dallas. And I really think Kellen Moore needs to give up the play calling duties because he was still there from when Jason Garrett got fired. I didn't really agree with that. If your head coach gets fired, I think your whole coaching staff needs to go. That's just my thought. But Washington took a commanding win. And in this dumpster fire of the NFC East, they're right back in the conversation for playoffs, which I can't believe. I cannot believe they are second place in this division with a 2-5 record, and they are in the conversation for potentially making the playoffs. That's how bad the NFC East is. But I mean, I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe Washington limited Dallas to 3 points. Altogether, this was a great football game, except for when Dallas drove down and kicked that field goal because Washington's kick coverage just wasn't that good. And Dallas's guy had a better kick return. And that's pretty much the only thing I saw that it was like, it's crazy. It was Tony Pollard, and nobody could catch him. But other than that, I didn't see anything wrong with Washington. They put up a good football game. But yet again, I do believe it was because the Dallas Cowboys were just that bad. The Washington football team 25, the Dallas Cowboys 3. When we return, we'll bring you some more Week 7 action and what to look forward to Week 8. We'll be right back. All right, wrapping things up here on the Kirby on Sports podcast with a 37-34 Arizona Cardinals upset over the Seattle Seahawks. This game, once again, another nail-biter. No doubt about it. Defense pressured Russell Wilson, and he had 3 interceptions. And I think in this game, once again, turnovers played a factor. And there was one interception that was Budda Baker. It was Budda Baker of the Arizona Cardinals who made that interception. There was some sort of miscommunication or something there between Russell Wilson and ended up Budda Baker. I think it was DK Metcalf. Yeah, DK Metcalf was chasing down Budda Baker, and the stats clocked Metcalf at 22.5 miles per hour and chased down Budda Baker to not get the touchdown. So it was some sort of miscommunication between Wilson and the receiver, but it was great to see DK Metcalf with lightning fast speed chasing down Budda Baker, or else he would have scored the touchdown. Other than that, I mean, it was a great game. Seattle pretty much had the game in reach for most of the game, but then an interception, then a touchdown for Seattle to start the fourth quarter, and that put them up by 10. Then they had to punt after the Cardinals scored 34-31 was the score. Then a field goal to tie it 34-34. And then what happened in overtime, the Seahawks punted to start, then a missed field goal, then the Seattle Seahawks threw another interception off the hands of Russell Wilson, and then a field goal to win it. So, unfortunately, I mean, Russell Wilson, don't get me wrong, he still should be MVP, but this was just a very well-played game, and Arizona cashed in on the turnovers. All there is to it. 200 yards total rushing for the Seattle Seahawks, and 159 yards total for the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray, only one interception, 360 yards, and 3 TV touchdowns, spreading the ball out to DeAndre Hopkins and 2 to Christian Kirk. But can we talk about the Seattle Seahawks, and can we talk about how Tyler Lockett is the most underrated receiver in the National Football League? This season, he has 7 touchdowns in 542 yards. He had 3 touchdown completions in this game. And he's not in the conversation anywhere on the news. And people are saying Tyler Lockett is one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL. And that's one of Russell Wilson's main throwing targets is Lockett. And he looked impressive. Wilson and Lockett just bond together, and Wilson knows where Lockett is to score the touchdown. So Tyler Lockett out of this game looked amazing, and I really think people should pay more attention to Tyler Lockett. If you don't have him in fantasy, you got to pick him up. But this was just, all in all, another shootout. There were in total 5 shootouts. That's what I like to call them, the close games in the NFL. I like to call them shootouts because that's what they are essentially. And there were 5 of them in this week 7. And it was great to see. One of my favorite weeks so far, and that is what I love about the NFL. The Monday Night Football game, plain and simple, the Rams beat the Bears. It was the Rams defense that pressured Nick Foles all night long. They pressured him all night long. Nick Foles had 2 interceptions. They were relatively late, but just the Rams, they're unstoppable at a 5-2 record. The Bears are 5-2 as well. Still in the conversation, but you know the classic Bears fans are already calling for Nick Foles to be benched and Mitch Trubisky to just go back to being the starter, and they're already calling for Matt Nagy's head after this loss. They're 5-2. Give the Bears some patience, folks. Bears fans, just give them patience, and it will come. But other than that, Week 7, it was a great time, and I'm glad I got to sit down and really savor all these games from Philly, New York, all the way to Seattle, Arizona, and everything in between. Which brings us now to what's on tap Week 8. What am I looking forward to the most, you might ask? Well, there's another dumpster fire NFC East battle between the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday Night Football. I mean, why did they put that on instead of Pittsburgh-Baltimore? That's my question. But as we look at this schedule, San Francisco and Seattle, that's one of the games I think could really be something to talk about after Week 8 if Seattle just coming off an upset loss and San Francisco beating the Patriots who knows what that game has in store. And what I'm looking forward to, Kansas City beating New York, and New York firing Adam Gase. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Week 8, starting off Week 8 with Thursday Night Football, the Atlanta Falcons and the Carolina Panthers. Teddy Bridgewater is 3-0 against the Atlanta Falcons and their starting quarterbacks. The Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens, the New England Patriots and the Buffalo Bills, the Tennessee Titans and the Cincinnati Bengals, the Las Vegas Raiders and the Cleveland Browns, the Indianapolis Colts and the Detroit Lions, the Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers, the Jets and the Chiefs, the Los Angeles Rams and the Miami Dolphins, the Los Angeles Chargers and the Denver Broncos, the San Francisco 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks, the New Orleans Saints and the Chicago Bears, the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles, and on Monday night, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the New York Giants. That about wraps it up for this edition of the Kirby on Sports podcast. As always, I want to thank each and every one of you for checking us out today. I really appreciate all the support. This support couldn't have happened without our sponsors, Regroup Building Services and PM Plus Reserves. Big thanks, as always, to MPT Now Productions, Dave Johnson, and Productions by Quet. You can check us out on all streaming platforms via the Kirby on Sports podcast, Anchor/FM, .fm/the Kirby on Sports podcast. Make sure you like and follow us on all social media platforms as well. Until the next episode, create greatness, and we will catch you next time. Peace out.